Yo, what's up guys, it's TBAG and I'm finally back from LA where I got the chance to play Battlefield 6 early. Now, like always, I'm very late to the party compared to other content creators, but I wanted to get a video out anyway talking about Battlefield 6 before the beta and discuss this game in detail. I've seen a lot of first impressions videos that I actually mostly agree with, but I also feel like they didn't touch on some minor and specific nitpicky things that I like to get into that could actually be a big deal for some players. So without further ado, let's begin. I just want to say EA actually did flew me out to LA and paid for my hotel and everything, which is awesome. I'm really grateful to have been given this opportunity. It was actually a lot of fun. I met a lot of great people, but I didn't get paid anything to make this content, so this is 100% my own personal opinion. I know people online are really praising this game so far, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can. Let's start with the thing that you actually feel the most when you start playing, the movement. It's very fluid in my opinion, kind of like Modern Warfare 2019, but a little bit more floaty, if that makes sense. That sounds like a bad thing, but I mean it in a good way. It feels responsive without being too twitchy. You have crouch sprint again, like Battlefield 5, which will actually be very useful in the Battle Royale game mode. There's also again a tactical roll you can do when landing to cancel some of the fall damage. And no stupid tactical sprint nonsense, just clean, readable movement. I like that. Also, leaning and peeking over obstacles are now contextual, which means that you can't abuse the movement like in some other shooters. Vaulting does interrupt your reload, which makes sense logically, but gameplay wise, I am personally not a fan of that. Obviously it's more realistic because you're using your hands to climb on stuff, so you can't physically reload your gun, but I always like to time manage my reload, if that makes sense. They got rid of that since Battlefield 2042, it's here to stay. Now about the gunplay. The gunplay is very solid so far, very easy to pick up, and actually maybe a little bit too easy in some cases. Some guns definitely feel a lot like laser beams with little to no recoil control, so I'm worried about weapon diversity because of that. Like, if only a couple of guns are insanely precise and the rest don't, most people will choose the easier guns, just like it was in Modern Warfare 2019. Now, I don't want to compare this game to Modern Warfare 2019 too much, but it definitely feels like DICE looked at that game for some inspiration, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion. The gun models look amazing too, by the way, in first person. Oh, and about the TTK and TTD, I don't know, sometimes it felt a little bit extreme, especially the TTD. Most of the time the TTK was actually fine in my opinion, but that's simple balancing that could easily be worked on based on feedback. Visually, this game is absolutely gorgeous. Battlefield's always been very pretty and Battlefield 6 continues this trend. The maps are like crazy detailed, there was so much stuff to see, like even the rubble is detailed. You got stuff happening in the sky, in the background, everywhere. It is insanely immersive, which is something we didn't really feel in Battlefield 2042. I still think that Battlefield 1 remains the king of immersion, but you won't be complaining about any of that in Battlefield 6. Like even the smoke and stuff lingers for a little bit longer, which yes, impact visibility, but it's just so damn cool and immersive. Something that's also really important, I didn't really have any issues with soldier visibility, like in Battlefield 5 where you could easily hide in the rubble and become literally invisible. Of course you can still camp on your back in the corner and make yourself harder to spot, but I haven't encountered anything close to Battlefield 5's visibility issues. The soldiers themselves look extremely cool and grounded, very military-esque, definitely not Nicki Minaj running around or anything like that. Hopefully it stays that way, we'll have to see. Literally zero complaints about how soldiers look in my opinion, except for class distinction, but we'll get to that later. Hopefully there will be no AI bots in normal matches to fill up the game if it's a little bit empty. I really didn't like that in Battlefield 2042. And if there are AI bots in game, let's hope they don't use real names or real gamer tags to trick people into thinking they're real players like they do in Delta Force. That's just very lame. I don't like that. Now obviously one of the biggest topics in Battlefield 6 is destruction. Destruction is back and I think it's better than ever. It might actually be a little bit too good. You can destroy floors and ceilings now, which is great, but I do think it might be a little bit too much. Like Battlefield Bad Company 1 destruction was very focused. You could just punch a small hole into a wall and get through without demolishing the entire side of the building. In Battlefield 6, it's either no damage or the entire thing will collapse, which is cool and it looks amazing, but perhaps some smaller destruction first before the whole structure explodes would be more beneficial. Let me know down below what you think. The fact that we do have vertical destruction, like I said, like breaking down ceilings and floors, is amazing and it opens up a new gameplay dimension. The audio that Battlefield is known for is equally impressive. Footsteps, gunfire, ambient sounds, all on point. And the end of round music, an absolute banger. They definitely nailed the vibe. It kind of reminds me of some of the Battlefield 1 in-game soundtracks. Another thing that actually sucks, and I can't believe I didn't start with this, there is no server browser for the main game. That much has been confirmed. They did say that a server browser for Portal will be very center stage, but I'm not sure if that will actually help with this problem or not. People just want a server browser in Battlefield, that way you can choose your own maps, choose your own game mode, that way servers hopefully don't disband and will go into the next game when the round has finished and you will come up against the same player as the previous match, which has always been the case up until the stupid Battlefield 2042. So hopefully the server browser in Portal will solve these kinds of issues, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's continue. Performance-wise, I had no issues on the PCs at the event, but they were pretty beastly. They were running on 5070s, so we'll see how it plays on lower end hardware. I think I only had one animation glitch, and that's pretty much it. Even the console version I played at the after party ran great. And speaking of which, when it comes to matchmaking, console players will mostly be matched with other console players, even when crossplay is turned on, which is amazing. That means way less worry about potential cheaters on PC and the whole asymmetry between controller and mouse and keyboard. Although it does open up some potential smurfing problems, but we'll see when we get there. Speaking of cheating, there is a new anti-cheat system in place called Javelin. Supposedly it's really effective, we'll see. Cross progression is also a thing, and the Steam version works without the EA app, so that's great, a lot of people like that. But I think for the cross progression to work, you do need to connect to the EA app, but I'm not entirely sure. Getting back to the console side of things, the aim assist on controller feels amazing. It's not overpowered at all, and it doesn't work against you like it did for the first half of Battlefield 2042's lifecycle. That was really annoying. They really nailed the control so far. It feels great, and I always complain about stuff like that normally, so me saying that they nailed it should tell you something. So far, they touch very briefly on how skill factors in with matchmaking, and people say that it sounds like regular team balancing we've always had in other Battlefield games, but I'm not entirely convinced yet. So there is potentially some skill-based matchmaking. We just have to wait and see and perhaps test it out. Now let's talk about some new additions to the game. First off, drag and revive. It's really cool. It actually has a lot of use. It's not some sort of gimmick, because if your teammate is down in a hot area, you want to actually get them out of there and then revive, which is now possible at the same time. But in my opinion, if you're not dragging, the revive should be just a little bit faster. Right now it just looks silly to just stand there with the med pen in your hand for like 3 seconds and then deciding to inject. But then again, maybe that goes against the revive time that they have in mind, and if that's the case, they should have a bit of a different animation when not dragging. Maybe something like you're looking for a spot to inject the pen or something like that, so you're moving around and it doesn't look so static, if that makes sense, at least in my opinion. From the downed player perspective, it's very similar to how it looks in Battlefield 5, but way smoother. You can still look around while you're down, it just feels way less clunky overall. Definitely an upgrade. Now when it comes to spotting, I honestly don't know. Like, you can ping like in Battlefield 5, but I'm pretty sure you can't 3D spot like in other Battlefield games. It could just be my button layout though at the event. That's another thing, keybinds are fully customizable, so if you don't like the default layout, just change it. Easy, that's good. There's also this new incoming fire direction indicator, which is definitely interesting and helpful, and I don't think it's too immersion breaking, it's actually pretty subtle. Still deciding how I feel about it long term, but for now it works. Portable ladders are probably in the game, that's something we saw in the trailers. We didn't get to play with them at the event, but if they are in the game, I'm very glad, because that's something I asked for literally 8 years ago in a Battlefield 1 video.
Another thing they can do is a gadget pickup. For example, in Battlefield Hardline, you could pick up the zipline gadget, which brings new flanking routes and strategy to the game. But what if you have a ladder as a pickup and place it against a high wall which you normally couldn't climb up? But now, because of the ladder, you can, and you have a whole new route to force yourself onto the objectives.
So who knows, maybe someone saw that video. But in that video I did say it could be a gadget pickup, because if everybody runs around with a ladder, who knows what happens to the flow of the map. Another thing I asked for in that old Battlefield 1 video is a mechanic where if someone gets killed by a sniper rifle headshot, that player cannot be revived.
Now, for number 2 on my list is being revived from a sniper headshot. This should not be possible in my opinion.
It looks like there will be a mechanic in Battlefield 6, which is pretty cool. Makes going for headshots that much more important. But then again, actually, maybe not, because the sweet spot mechanic from Battlefield 1 for sniper rifles will probably return, allegedly. I haven't encountered it myself, but I've seen people talk about it, so I'm not sure how to feel about that. This game is much faster than Battlefield 1, so I don't think it will fit the game as well as it did in Battlefield 1. Heck, it was a controversial mechanic even in Battlefield 1 back then. So let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Another small but very cool thing is that if you are on a 5 or 10 or higher kill streak, it will be shown in-game. I'm not sure if this is also on larger game modes like Conquest, but here in Squad Deathmatch it was visible. Now when it comes to the maps, I'm not sure, I'm not entirely convinced yet. The Brooklyn map is super chaotic with lots of angles that can be really annoying, but I kinda like that map. There's tons of verticality and pathways, which is dope. Cairo looks insane, probably the best looking map of the bunch. And the Peak map, not really my thing so far. I don't feel like it flows too well, but a lot of people really enjoyed it though, so perhaps it's just me. I just want to see and play a map with some boats. I really want to see some naval combat like we had in Battlefield 4, which was really cool. Let's see, what else? The support class now has actual value, way more than before. They're now the only ones with health and ammo that you can drop on the ground for yourself or your team, which I think is a great decision. The support class was always the least played class in previous Battlefield games, but this might fix that. And speaking of health, I feel like the health regeneration is way too fast. Either the regeneration itself should be slower, or the time before it starts should be longer, or both. Because right now it almost feels like you're always on some sort of stim injection, making the health packs of the support class a little bit useless. As for the open class system, I really don't love it. They claim it leads to more engagement from players, but to me, it just makes classes feel less distinct. There is a locked class playlist though, which is good, so we'll see what ends up being more fun. Also, all the classes look very similar visually, so you don't know on first glance if you're up against a recon player or an engineer or anything like that. And again, it doesn't really matter in the open class system, because they can carry any kind of weapon anyway, but in the locked class playlist, you kinda wanna know who you're fighting to make certain decisions. Now let's talk a little bit about the UI. The personal kill feed off to the center left is something I don't really like. And I'm only talking about its location on screen. I just prefer to have it in the middle like previous Battlefield games. The personal kill feed design itself is pretty decent, but I prefer Battlefield 4's personal kill feed as well as Battlefield 2042's, believe it or not. The lobby kill feed also looks great, and yes, stuff like that matters for the overall product. I mean, look at this kill log and compare that to Battlefield 5 for example, which kinda sucks in my opinion. Another thing about the UI, I wish the score system at the top of the screen would be moved to be above the minimap like we had in Battlefield 4. It just frees up the screen a little bit, which means less UI clutter. Overall, the entire UI feels and looks great, except the options menu navigation and the fact that the personal kill feed is to the left of the middle, like I mentioned. The minimap is also very cool. It looks a lot like Battlefield Bad Company 1, which I love, and you can luckily change squads mid-game, which we couldn't do at launch in Battlefield 2042. Not sure if you can switch teams like in Battlefield 1 though, because they got rid of that in Battlefield 5. I don't think you can actually, so it could be really frustrating if you're playing like Rush or Breakthrough over and over again and always end up on the defending side when you actually want to be on the attacking side. So perhaps they have a built-in system where they match you not too many times in a row like that. We'll see. Another thing, the kill notification sound isn't as cool as Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5. Heck, I think Battlefield 2042 eventually got a better kill sound, but it's not that big a deal. It's definitely not bad. Let's talk attachments. The gun attachment system is interesting, but didn't really feel unique per gun. You have a point system of 100 points to spend, and each attachment costs some points. And I feel like some attachments should cost way more points so that you can just slap on every single attachment. You really have to think about what kind of loadout you bring instead of maximizing everything. Do we care more about ADS speed and mobility, or faster reload time, or higher muzzle velocity, or stuff like that? I think some of the optics should also only be available for specific weapons, so that even the optics themselves can feel distinct for each weapon. Otherwise you just always use the same optic anyway for the same amount of points. Perhaps when you master a gun after like 1000 kills or so, you can choose any optic on any gun or something like that. Just an idea, but you do get detailed stats per weapon and attachments, which is great. I feel like the amount of attachments is also a little bit limited. In Modern Warfare 2019 they did it better in my opinion. It felt more impactful and some of the attachments were unique for that specific gun. I would like to see that as well in Battlefield 6. It just gives more content to explore. Next item on the list are the grenades. Grenades are kinda weak in Battlefield 6, which is not necessarily bad because they are not as annoying and spammy as in, for example, Battlefield 1, but the throw animation in my opinion is way too fast. It feels more like a panic button than a tactical decision to throw a grenade. I prefer the slower, more deliberate throw like in Battlefield 4. Now let's talk a little bit about the vehicles. The tanks feel fine, kind of the same as Battlefield 2042 in my opinion. Third person tanking is still overpowered, And in regards to vehicle customization, again, like the gun customization, I would like to see more depth, which brings me to one of my bigger concerns of the game. I'm afraid of the amount of content, which will not be enough probably. And not just the actual number of maps, for example, but things to do. For example, in Battlefield 1 you could also use elite kits and behemoths, which some people found too cheesy, I get it, but it does add another element to the game, which result in more content overall, which is something I would like to see as well in Battlefield 6 in one way or another. Now you do have some sort of upgrade system in game, like you can call in a UAV with enough points, but I didn't feel much impact of that, but that could also be because I wasn't really paying attention to it. As for the vehicle gameplay, I think it's gonna be very one-dimensional, while in Battlefield 5 of all games, there were actually a lot of different vehicles to choose from, and they could be customized in a lot of different ways, which made room for different playstyles and weapons. I hope to see that as well in Battlefield 6 after a little while. For example, the jets could use different perks or upgrades, like the F-22 as a 5th gen fighter could be better in air maneuverability, but have a weaker gun than, for example, the F-16. This is just an example, I'm thinking out of the top of my head here. By the way, I can't get into the jet gameplay too much because I simply wasn't able to hop in one at the event. From what I've seen though, it looks insanely cool. I'm not sure if there are any faction specific vehicles like in Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5. I think the NATO faction has the same stuff as PAX Armada, but I'm not sure. Also, PAX Armada versus NATO is kinda boring. I would have liked to see some actual factions like NATO versus Russia, or the US versus China, or any other country, doesn't matter. In fact, USA versus the rest of NATO could have been very interesting from a lore point of view, but we'll wait for the single player campaign before going in too deep on this. Now we can't end this video without talking about some of the big stuff. Portal is back and it's way more powerful than in Battlefield 2042. I can't wait to see what the community will build with all its tools. Someone better make Gunmaster or a gun game on day one. No excuses, but that would be pretty basic for what you can do. Like, you can pretty much edit entire maps to your liking and create something actual creative. Honestly, can't wait to see what people will make. Another big thing is the fact that there is no last gen support. And honestly, I think that's great. Sorry if you are still on the PS4 or Xbox One, but the game's clearly built for modern hardware and now it's not limited anymore by old gen consoles. Keep in mind, the PS4 is already 12 years old. I mean, we've all seen how Battlefield 2042 plays on the base PS4. And if you haven't, I highly recommend you watch this video I made a while back. It's actually pretty funny. Let's see, what else? I think that pretty much covers everything so far. If you have any specific questions you want to ask, just let me know down below and I'll try to answer as many as I can. So far, Battlefield 6 is shaping out to be something really interesting. It's got just a couple of flaws, but all in all, nothing too major. No server browser in the base game sucks. Open class system isn't my favorite. And I'm still worried about the long-term content, but the core experience, the gameplay loop, like the movement, gunplay, destruction, sound design, all of it feels like actual S-tier Battlefield. And that hasn't been the case since a long time. If they keep polishing this and listen to the feedback, we might actually be back. So be sure to play the beta and share as much feedback as possible. Let me know down below what you think. I'll have more content coming soon. Can't wait to try out the beta. But for now, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like for the algorithm and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And with that being said, I see you guys next time.